Have you ever felt the air change before something unexplainable happens? Like your instincts know a truth your mind hasn't caught up with yet? It was a quiet Sunday afternoon. I was home alone, wrapped in a blanket of routine and silence, when an unexpected knock at the door startled me. Standing there was my cousin Kyle, someone I hadn't seen in over a year. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I need to talk to you," he said, voice low, urgent. Something about his presence felt off. Not threatening exactly, but heavy. Like he was carrying a secret too big to keep. Before I could ask what was going on, he stepped inside and closed the door behind us. That was the moment everything shifted. What happened next not only shattered my perception of the people I loved, but made me question my own heart and why name is Claire, and I've always thought of myself as someone who could handle anything. At least, that's what I used to tell myself. Life, with all its little disappointments and big heartbreaks, had been a challenge, but I was managing. A little bruised, maybe, but standing tall. I'm 33 now, divorced, and working through the pieces of a life that no longer feels like mine. My ex-husband, Matt, moved on quickly after our split. I guess it wasn't a surprise. He'd been distant for months before we called it quits. In the end, I didn't fight the divorce. It wasn't worth it. What's the point in holding on to something that's already slipped away? We were married for 5 years, but looking back, those years feel like a blur. The signs were there, the neglect, the cold silence during dinner, the way he would look at his phone instead of at me. But I didn't want to see them. So I ignored them, until one day, the truth exploded in my face. He'd been seeing someone else. A woman named Jessica. It was the kind of betrayal that shakes you to your core. Now, here I was, alone in my small apartment, staring at the same walls that had once felt like home. It was one of those rare afternoons when the house was completely quiet. No phone calls, no responsibilities, no obligations. Just me and my thoughts. That's when the knock came. I wasn't expecting anyone. My roommate, Rachel, had been gone for the weekend, visiting her boyfriend. So when I opened the door to find Kyle standing there, I was caught off guard. He looked just like he always had. Tall, with dark brown hair that he ran his fingers through when he was nervous. His eyes were the same, warm, but now they seemed clouded, like something was weighing on him. The familiarity of him was comforting, yet the unease in the pit of my stomach didn't fade. Something wasn't right. "Kyle," I said, blinking. "What are you doing here?" He smiled, but it wasn't a real smile. It didn't reach his eyes. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice tight. I stepped back, letting him into the apartment. We'd always been close growing up, more like siblings than cousins. Our families had spent holidays together, and in high school, we were inseparable. I always admired his quiet strength, the way he held things together when the world around us seemed to fall apart. But that was years ago. We'd drifted apart after I got married, and even more so after the divorce. I hadn't seen him in months. As he stepped inside, I noticed how tense his shoulders were, how stiff his movements had become. And when he closed the door behind him, I felt a shiver run down my spine. "Is everything okay?" I asked, but the words sounded hollow even to me. He turned toward me, his eyes filled with something I couldn't place. "I need to tell you something," he said, his voice trembling. I didn't know what to expect, but something in Kyle's posture, the way he wouldn't meet my eyes, told me this wasn't a simple visit. I watched him as he shifted uneasily from one foot to the other. His hands were shoved deep into the pockets of his jacket, and his lips pressed tight, like he was trying to hold back something dangerous. "Claire, I need to get this out," he said, his voice barely a whisper. There was a trembling edge to it that made my chest tighten. I tried to keep my tone light, but it came out more strained than I meant. "What's going on, Kyle? You're scaring me." He stood still for a moment, his gaze focused on the floor like he couldn't bear to look at me. His breathing was shallow, and I could feel the weight of whatever was happening settle between us. "I'm not sure how to say this," he muttered, "but I need you to listen. What I'm about to tell you, it changes everything." I felt my stomach flip, a cold wave of anxiety rushing over me. I took a step closer, but still, he wouldn't meet my eyes. "You're making me nervous," I admitted, the words slipping out before I could stop them. I know, he said, looking up at me finally. His eyes were full of something I couldn't name, guilt, fear, maybe a little bit of pain. I shouldn't be here. I should have told you sooner. But I didn't know how. Kyle, I said, trying to steady my breath, you're scaring me. Please, just tell me. He took a deep breath, and for a moment, I thought he might say something reassuring, something to calm me down. But instead, he took a step toward me, his expression darkening. It's about Matt, he said, his voice heavy with hesitation. It's about what he did. My pulse quickened. My chest constricted. I already knew where this was going, but I couldn't quite believe it. The air between us grew thick and suffocating, and I struggled to breathe as the words hung in the space between us. What do you mean? I asked, my throat dry. What did Matt do? Kyle swallowed hard. I saw him, Claire. The night you went out of town, he was at the hotel downtown, with Jessica. I saw them together. He stopped, his face going pale. I saw them, Claire. I saw him with her. It felt like the ground dropped out from under me. I staggered back a step, my mind scrambling for something to hold on to. I didn't want to believe him. Not Kyle. He wouldn't lie about something like this. But at the same time, I couldn't process it. Couldn't understand how it could be true. No, I whispered, shaking my head. No. This isn't possible. He reached out, but I pulled away. It's the truth, Claire. I'm so sorry. I didn't want to be the one to tell you, but you need to know. You deserve to know. I took a shaky breath, my head spinning. My thoughts were like shards of glass, each one cutting deeper than the last. My mind raced back to all the little signs I'd ignored, the late nights, the guarded conversations, the way Matt had been so distant in the months leading up to our divorce. But this was different. This was the confirmation of everything I had never wanted to face. How long? I asked, my voice barely audible. I don't know, Kyle answered, his voice breaking. A couple of months, at least. Maybe more. I don't know how long it had been going on. But I saw them. That night. I felt sick. Nausea bubbled up from my stomach, and I turned away, clutching at the edge of the couch. My legs felt weak, like they might give out at any moment. I should have told you sooner, Kyle continued, his voice full of regret. But I didn't know how. I didn't want to hurt you even more. The words hung in the air like a dark cloud, suffocating me. The betrayal wasn't just Matt's, it was Kyle's too. He knew. He watched it happen, and he did nothing. He did nothing. My thoughts became a whirlwind of anger and confusion. How could he? How could both of them? My mind screamed at me to push Kyle away, to scream, to demand answers. But the words stuck in my throat, caught between rage and heartbreak. I turned to him, my chest tight, my voice shaking with something more than anger. Why didn't you say anything sooner? Why keep it from me, Kyle? You knew what he was doing to me. You saw it, and you said nothing. His eyes filled with guilt, and he stepped toward me. I didn't want to tear you apart. I thought if I just let you find out on your own, maybe it would hurt less. But now I know I was wrong. I should have said something sooner. I should have protected you. The air between us was charged, thick with all the things we hadn't said, everything we'd avoided. I felt so many emotions at once, betrayal, sorrow, confusion. But what I didn't feel was relief. There was no catharsis in hearing this. There was no peace in knowing the truth. All I felt was the weight of the secrets that had been kept from me, and the anger that had been growing inside me for months, finally finding its outlet. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, but all I could do was whisper, "How could you, Kyle? How could you let me go through that alone?" His face crumpled with regret. "I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. But I couldn't stand by and watch you fall apart without telling you the truth. I should have told you from the start." The tears welled in my eyes, but I forced them back. "I don't know what to do with this," I said, my voice thick. "I don't know how to deal with any of this. I thought I knew you. But now." "Claire," he said, taking a tentative step forward, There's more I need to tell you. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. What do you mean? More. Kyle took a deep breath, looking like he might collapse under the weight of it all. It's not just about Matt and Jessica. There's something I've been carrying for a long time. Something I didn't know how to tell you. I stared at him, my pulse racing, knowing that whatever he said next would change everything. The words hung in the air between us, thick with anticipation and dread. I could feel the tension rising, the way the silence pressed in like the walls were closing around me. Kyle wasn't looking at me now. His eyes were fixed somewhere over my shoulder, distant, like he was searching for the courage to say whatever he was about to say. But my heart was already pounding in my chest, preparing for the worst. What is it, Kyle? I said, my voice barely a whisper. I didn't want to hear it, I didn't want to know, but I couldn't stop myself. I had to. I had to know what he meant. What else could there possibly be? He swallowed hard, his hands trembling. It's about me, Claire, he said, his voice breaking. It's about how I feel. I blinked, confused, my mind reeling. What do you mean? What does that have to do with any of this? He took a shaky breath, then looked me squarely in the eyes for the first time since he'd walked in. His gaze was intense, raw with something I hadn't expected to see, regret, fear, and something else, something deeper. I've loved you, Claire. I have for a long time. But I've never known how to tell you. My heart skipped a beat, and I took an involuntary step back, almost tripping over the coffee table behind me. I felt the room spin, like the ground was shifting beneath me. My stomach twisted, a sickening mix of surprise and disbelief. Kyle, what? My words faltered. What are you talking about? You're my cousin. I know, he said, his voice cracking. I know. But I can't help how I feel. I've tried to bury it, to ignore it, but it's been eating at me for years. It's why I couldn't be there for you when Matt was hurting you. It's why I've stayed away, because I was too afraid that if I got close, you'd see it, and you'd hate me for it. I felt dizzy, my mind trying to process the weight of what he was saying. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. Kyle, my cousin, had been carrying feelings like that for me. 4 years. But why now? I asked, my voice trembling with a mix of disbelief and confusion. Why are you telling me this now? He shook his head, his eyes filled with sorrow. Because I can't keep lying to you. I can't keep watching you go through this alone, knowing the truth and never saying anything. You deserve the truth, Claire. And if this is the last time I see you, at least you'll know why I acted the way I did. I felt my throat close up, the overwhelming weight of everything he had said crashing down on me. The betrayal of Matt, the pain of our divorce, the betrayal of Kyle, now tangled with emotions that I couldn't untangle. And there it was, all of it, laid bare before me, raw and jagged, like an open wound. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but the words refused to come. What could I say? How could I respond to this, to the revelation that had shattered everything I thought I knew about him, and about myself? I wanted to scream, to tell him how wrong this was, to tell him that the very thought of it made my skin crawl. But then another part of me, the part that had always been drawn to him, the part that had always felt this strange connection to him, that part of me recoiled at the same time. I didn't know how to navigate these feelings, how to make sense of the emotions that had tangled up inside of me for years. I looked at him, my chest tight with a mixture of anger, confusion, and something I couldn't name. He was standing there, waiting for me to say something, his face pale, his hands still trembling. But all I could do was stand there, shaking, trying to find words to respond. I don't know what to say, I whispered, the air around us thick with the weight of everything unsaid. Kyle stepped back, his face falling. I never wanted to hurt you, Claire. But I couldn't keep this secret anymore. I don't expect you to feel the same way. I just needed you to know. His confession hung between us, a fragile thread that both connected us and tore us apart. My mind was reeling, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't know who to trust, who to turn to. The world had become a confusing blur, and the lines between love, betrayal, and family had all but disappeared. I could feel my breath coming in short gasps, my heart pounding in my chest. I wanted to run. I wanted to escape from the whirlwind of emotions that had taken over my body, my mind. But instead, I just stood there, paralyzed by the enormity of what Kyle had just said. "You've changed everything," I whispered, not sure if I was speaking to him or to myself. "Everything." Kyle's eyes filled with tears, and he stepped back again, as if he couldn't bear to be near me any longer. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "I never meant for it to be like this." And with that, he turned and walked toward the door, leaving me standing there, alone, in the wake of his confession. The door clicked softly behind Kyle, and I was left alone in the silence that filled the room. My legs gave out beneath me, and I sank onto the couch, burying my face in my hands. The tears came, but they weren't the kind I expected. They weren't just sadness or betrayal, though those emotions churned deep in my chest. They were something more, something confused, tangled between relief and a profound sense of loss. I had known something was wrong for so long, but never in 1,000 years had I imagined this would be the truth. My cousin, the person I had always looked to as a steady, unwavering presence, had been hiding his feelings for me. He had been living with a secret that had made his silence feel like a betrayal in its own right. But the worst part wasn't the secret itself, it was the way it had unspooled everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and family. How could someone who had known me so well hide something so deep? How could I have been so blind? I could still feel the weight of his words pressing on my chest. I've loved you for years. His confession had shattered the fragile pieces of what I thought was reality, leaving me adrift in a sea of uncertainty. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the empty door, my thoughts swirling. I knew I needed time to process, to understand the mess of emotions Kyle had thrown into my life. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this moment, this unspoken truth, had altered something irreversibly between us. Would I ever see him the same way again? Could I forgive him for not telling me sooner? And could I even forgive myself for the way my heart had unknowingly danced around the possibility of what he had confessed? What is love, really? A bond forged over years of shared memories and whispered secrets? Or something far more fragile, broken by a single, unspoken truth? As the evening slipped into night, I found myself lost in thought. The quiet of the apartment settled around me, and in the stillness, I realized one thing. The truth, no matter how painful, had a way of unraveling everything. And as I stared out the window, the world beyond seemed unchanged, but somehow, I knew I would never be the same again.